let's talk everyday life.
Sure.
Besides those unique scenarios of, I know I'm going to this scenario, this situation, this person, and we have those great tools you kind of shared with us. Developing everyday training, everyday resiliency for everyday stressors,
Yep.
everyday anxiety. I'm sure you would agree. Let me know. There's great power if we can overcome those small adversities every day, the small anxiety-inducing scenarios. We're going to be way more prepared for the larger ones, right? So what are some things that we can do? What does a daily anxiety training protocol look like?
For sure. Great questions. Well, let's talk about social anxiety because it's super common. That person at work who you don't like to talk to, whether it's making small talk or whether it's a superior at work or whether it's somebody who's, a colleague or whatever it is. And I don't mean because you don't like them. I mean because it makes you feel anxious. Something, they're going to ask you certain questions.
Good disclaimer.
Yeah.
Some people we definitely don't like.
Yeah, that's different. That's a different podcast.
That's a different protocol, yeah.
That's a different show. And Thriving with Your Anger.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah.
Part 2, everybody.
Yeah, it's the next book. I'm just kidding. But with regards to anxiety, making that small talk, not having to, drink a beer before you go and have a conversation with somebody. Often in college, by the way, students with alcohol disorders have social anxiety.
So you would think they're most comfortable because they're probably the most social, right? But it's kind of
they're most comfortable because they're drunk.
Ah.
But being able to actually, without liquor courage, actual courage, mustering it up, making small talk, having that conversation, raising your hand in class, raising your hand in a meeting, being able to say like, hey, this is what I'm out there, making a social media post. I've seen people who don't have a social media profile because they're too nervous. What if somebody sees this and what if they think that? Yeah, they probably will. Will it really matter? No, just get out there and do it anyway. And I encourage people, at least on a weekly basis, for emotional fortitude, general advice, at least once a week, doing something that makes you moderately anxious.
It makes me think right now, everybody and their brother, and I can't talk because I just got one, is super into like cold plunging, the ice bath thing.
Okay.
Jumping into adversity, choosing adversity. It's so true though. I mean, consciously choosing, it can be ice bath, it could be anything that you don't like, brings you discomfort. But I think there's a lot of power to be had. You might disagree with the power thing again, but you're choosing to not live in fear. You're choosing to get ahead of your anxiety. You're choosing to act from an empowered position, I think.
Now I know what you're saying by power.
Okay.
What you're saying is when you surrender to the fact that it's going to suck, you actually realize that you have the inner strength to be able to overcome it.
Oh, he gets it. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Now we're on the same page.
This is what we say all the time in the military, just embrace the suck. That's just something that stuck with me for years.
Yeah, good.
And
that's why you're not anxious.
Yeah.
That's why you're not anxious. Yeah, and once you do, you're not going to judge yourself, and you realize that you have a lot more capacity internally. Today people don't think they can.
Go deeper there, please. I think that's a huge realization. People don't realize the capacity they have to endure these situations.
Yeah, at one of my book talks the other day, somebody came over to me afterwards, and she was in tears. And I said, like, what did I say? She's like, no, you don't understand. I've been to 100 mental health talks in the last several years. And you are the first person to ever tell me that I can handle this.
Wow.
Everybody else is saying you can't handle this, put it away, like, tamp it down, you have to chill, you have to relax. And I'm like, no, this is a human emotion. This is what you're built for. Muster up the strength. It's not going to be fun. It's not going to be easy. You're going to have setbacks, but you can do this. And she was literally in tears.
Wow. What a huge realization for her.
Yeah. It's great.
What would you say are maybe 2 or 3 today most common anxiety-inducing situations, thoughts that you kind of see most people dealing with right now?
The most common is going to be generalized anxiety disorder, basically the worry warts of the world.
Just about everything all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Worried about the money, worried about the economy, worried about the government, worried about climate change, worried about you name it.
I think we all know somebody like that.
Health, that's another one. And usually it's 1 or 2 domains at least, and those worries just chatter throughout the day. Lots of tension, lots of, maybe some stomach upset, and chronically worried and uncomfortable and anxious. So that'd be number 1.
Okay. What about some non-medication approaches to really helping someone who has, let's say, actual diagnosed anxiety disorder or just living with high levels of chronic anxiety, just feeling anxious all the time? We don't want to go medication. What are maybe some other modalities besides everything we've already talked about?
Okay, so let's just talk about medication briefly. You know, I firstly, more than 50% of my patients are on some form of medication, and I don't have a problem with it in theory, but the way that it's used is more important to me than whether it's used. And I'll try to explain that. Yeah. When people take psychiatric medications in order, let's take your anxiety, think about it as a scale of 0 to 10. Okay. So 0 means you're dead. So nobody is almost known as zero anxiety. So that's not good. Yeah. So we don't want to go to 0. 10 means like your brain is going to explode or something like that. It won't really, but so basically you're left with 1 to 9, right? 3 are low, 4, 5, 6 are medium, and 7, 8, 9 are high. Let's say somebody's running really hot and they're in like the 7, 8, 9 category, almost chronically situations. I don't mind that person taking certain psychiatric compounds in order to reduce things to a 4, 5, or 6.
To lower their baseline to then better manage.
And then they can manage the 4, 5, or 6.
Right.
But when they're promised this golden pill to get you from a 9 or an 8, or even from a 4 or a 5 or 6 to a 0 or to a 1, that is going to fail because that anxiety is going to rebound. You are for sure going to have, there's no such thing as a magic pill that you can take to get rid of all your anxiety. If someone's trying to sell that to you, I wouldn't buy it too quickly. So I don't have a problem with people taking certain medications, at least temporarily, to get their anxiety down to a mid-range. Okay. And then they're learning to tolerate, because it is hard to tolerate 7s, 8s, and 9s on a daily basis for some people.
I have to imagine.
Yeah, it's very, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very, very challenging. Even a 4, 5, and 6 is going to be hard for certain people. That mid-range of anxiety, that's a challenge. That's doable though. But the problem I have is when people are taking medications in order to eliminate it. That's just not effective. It doesn't help. And
it's not realistic.
It's not realistic, and it makes things worse.